and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. This week it's the press, privacy and the paparazzi. Just where should the line be drawn, and is it about to be moved to the media's disadvantage? Here is the news. Ali Moore spat the dummy on breakfast, accusing Women's Day, perhaps unfairly, of creepy stalking in pursuit of pictures of what the Herald on Sunday described as Moore's new lady love romance.
I have a question for Women's Day editor Sarah Henry and her offsider Catherine Milford. Perhaps you would both be kind enough to let me know when this kind of thing is going to stop.
Women's Day publisher ACP hit back with a broadcasting standards complaint, insisting its snapper had only been following around Moore for a little while, which is presumably just dandy. Meanwhile, the brutally competitive British tabloid market has thrown up, in more than one sense, an example of where untrammelled surveillance can lead. MPs there are livid at an inquiry's finding that the News of the World engaged in electronic eavesdropping on politicians, celebrities and the royal family on, quote, an industrial scale.
Police are urgently considering these allegations and will be making a statement this afternoon, Mr Speaker.
Amazingly, the MP's inquiry found, as Guardian editor Alan Rusbridger and reporter Nick Davies explain, that neither the police or Britain's press watchdog seemed terribly interested in doing anything about all this.
The information that we were disclosing had been in the possession of the police and the Information Commission's office for several years.
The MPs have expressed surprise that the police didn't use the powers that they have got when they found out what was going on.
And now the rest of the British news media seem intent on burying the story. Still, the News of the World may find itself the subject of a judicial inquiry. But if that's too far, where do we draw the line? Do new proposals from the Law Commission and the Broadcasting Standards Authority lean towards privacy at the expense of press freedom? Do celebrities who sell their stories to the women's magazines thereby surrender their privacy? Should we easily void the right to take pictures in a public place? And what does it mean if we do? Joining me now to discuss those issues are NBR media columnist David Cohen.
Hi, Russell.
Broadcaster Mary Lambie, who has accepted the Celebrity magazine check more than once, and Law Commissioner Professor John Burrows QC. Welcome to you all. David, I enjoyed your column about the Alison Moore episode last week. If I could summarise it, it's basically A, that the same-sex relationship is hardly a scandal these days, and B, that Alison Moore has been happy to use those same magazines when it suited her. Would that be a fair summary?
Up to a point. I don't think a same-sex relationship is scandalous, thank God, but it is deeply fascinating. I think as humans we're sexual beings, aside from any other consideration. We are rather interested in what people get up to. We have the social construct, a good thing, called modesty, privacy, which means that most of us keep a certain distance. We reveal our innermost lives gradually. It's a little old-fashioned, but it's necessary for society to tick. People like Ali Moore have cashed in that chip. They have, in opening their lives to their various births and deaths and marriages, or hatch matches and dispatches, they are, you know, they've...
Which is a nice idea, but where exactly is this Faustian pact written down? And what's the fine print? I mean, for example, you've written a book about your relationship with your son. Does that make you fair game?
In that respect, yes. I mean, if I wrote a book about my very close relationship with my son and various aspects of my reality as a father. Now, if there were pertinent points that might undermine that or throw additional light on that, or just things that people would naturally be interested in as a consequence, then that's fair game. I'm
trying to pin you down on exactly what...
I'm trying to give you a really juicy analogy.
On what Ali Moore has done in order to become fair game.
Well, she had that barrier, that natural social barrier that I alluded to before, the modesty, the privacy. Now, she has traded that away by agreeing for the media, or the so-called women's media, allowing that media access to her innermost life. Now, you can't pick and choose. Either you're going to do it or you're not. Now, the juicy analogy is this. If you sleep with somebody, you really have a right to a certain sort of intimate communication with them thereafter. By, in doing the act, you take the relationship to another level. Similarly, in the case that we're discussing, she cannot for years be, the happy family woman, the mum, the whatever else that will boost her ratings, that will improve her brand, bring her in more money, and then suddenly throw a tantrum when things slip out of her control.
Mary, you have done this. You have sold stories. You've done the negotiation. You've kept control over what's going to be in the story. What did you make of what David's saying?
Well, I think actually it doesn't make any difference whatsoever now, in the modern age, 2010, if you sell your story or if you don't. I think the difference is, are you on the public platform or aren't you? John Key, possibly case in point, he is out there. Any movement in his relationship, if he was to run off with Ali Moore, I mean, there would be a story. I mean, I don't understand that he's actually been paid for any personal yarns. I mean, I see him and his wife on the cover of the occasional magazine. So I think the difference is, in fact, it's not actually the money. And may I say about the money, certainly in the past we've received money in exchange for stories, and we've done that for a couple of reasons.
Who's we?
I beg your pardon, me, my children.
Oh, okay. Right.
Not actually James, so I'll actually take full responsibility for it because it's not really his thing. But it's been a win-win situation. The win being the magazine gets the extra sales that maybe having me and children on the cover has generated. I've received some money. I've been, lucky enough to be able to hand a lot of that money on to charity because that's sort of my thing. And also in the process, we have gained some really lovely, lovely photos of our children along the way. I mean, who wouldn't want Monty Adams in your house for a whole day shooting beautiful shots of your infant child that only really you're interested in? And, 5, 6...
I'm still looking for the fine print on the Faustian Pact. Once you've done this, how much surveillance can you reasonably expect?
I think that you can expect a lot. But my point is, I don't think it makes any difference if you've received monies for opening your door or not. If you are in the public arena, that makes you fair game.
John, there's been a lot of talk about the Ali Moore case. Very little of it has centred on whether it was in fact legal to do this. What's your opinion on that?
Well, the Law Commission just produced a report, and what we've decided is the law on surveillance is very patchy indeed and very strange. But I suspect now that unless the following of her, if indeed there was following, was truly distressing, because she was photographed in public, there probably is not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah, she will have been followed not by an employee of Women's Day, but by a freelance photographer. There are a number of these people who do this in the hope of good pictures. Yeah. Would it have made a difference if she had been on the premises of a dwelling when she was photographed?
I would have thought if she is seen coming and going from a dwelling, unless again that involves a whole lot of watching and besetting over a long period of time on repeated occasions, to the point where it becomes distressing, there's probably not a lot she could do about that. So
at that point, would it meet a test for harassment? Because that's one of the suggestions you've made, is to firm up that definition.
That is the question. And currently you can be harassed if you are watched or followed or telephoned repeatedly, which they regard as being twice a year, 2 times in a year. I don't know how they sort of arrive at that. But what we're suggesting in our report is that should be extended to cover any type of surveillance, because I don't think watching or following is quite enough. So, say, filmed with covert cameras, cameras outside the place all the time, for any prolonged period of time. But there again, it would have to get to the distressing level, distressing to an ordinary reasonable person, before a court could step in and make an order about it. So that's one thing we're recommending.
Sir Geoffrey Palmer said that the report addresses changes in the way these technologies work. I mean, what exactly is the problem that you're looking to provide penalties and remedies for?
Well, when you say what's the problem, we were handed 3 years ago a complete review of the law of privacy. That's the Privacy Act, the Common Law on Privacy, the whole package. And what we found was that surveillance laws were very patchy. So there's a very strange rule that says you can't look in somebody's window between 1 hour after sunset and 1 hour before sunrise. I don't know why that is so. There's been a rule for 30 years that you can't tape somebody's private conversation, that you can't tap people's computers. But there's almost no law at all about secretly filming somebody, and there's no law whatever about putting tracking devices in somebody's car or using perhaps GPS technology to work out where somebody is without their knowledge. And it just seemed to us that those gaps needed filling because technology is moving apace. And unless the law puts a stick in the sand somewhere, that's just going to continue, and there'll come a time when it's too late.
So, short of such a remedy, what Alison Moore did was used her position in the media to hit back at the magazine. What did you make of that, Mary? Was that fair?
No, I was quite surprised at her reaction, and I was surprised. I didn't actually see it go out live, but I'd heard so much conversation about it, I eventually went onto the internet and watched it. It intrigued me at a couple of levels. In fact, 3 levels. It's just become obvious to me. Don't they look alike, those two? And they clearly have the same hairdresser. It's the first thing. But the second thing is how it is that she sought, and it was approved editorially within the breakfast program, that the producer said, yes, we're going to dedicate 5 minutes to you and the spat, this grievance that you have with the magazines. I found that an absolutely outstandingly ridiculous decision.
Even more
I couldn't believe that. But may I just say, on the third point, I am very surprised that Ali elected to do it in the first place. I mean, she is a seasoned media woman, and I am absolutely dumbfounded that she thought that this would be a smart thing to do, because I think it's actually come back to bite her in the bum a bit.
Maybe it was a conspiracy. I mean, here's a conspiracy theory. I mean, I saw the tantrum. And it did remind me a little bit of the WWE. There was a sort of made-for-camera, you know, it reminded me of, you know, Ric Flair or something. And clearly it had been set up. We had the email address of ACP magazines obligingly rolled under the screen. So, you know, maybe this is an elaborate ruse to
well, the fascinating thing is that this story was already in motion.
Right, let's talk about that, because that does tie in with
the special bond between Ali and Pippa. So this was approved knowing that there was a story placed with another magazine. What do you make of that?
Well, as I say, the more I think about it, as in right now, the more I do think there was there's something a little phony. There's something a little inauthentic about all this faux outrage.
Yes, it did seem slightly faux. I think that a really smart woman, and Ali is no slug, and she has been around long enough to know a lot of this is about management. You have to manage these situations. And the smartest way, I believe, you manage a situation like that is you come clean in a controlled environment as quickly as possible. So I would have got the lover, whatever form that lover took, planted myself on a sofa, had Monty shoot me, Photoshop me, 600 beautiful words about our lovely bond, stuck it on the cover. It all goes away in a week.
And you know what the irony of that is? The PR professionals that we consulted said completely the opposite. They said she should have just shut up and let it, and you know, let the story die.
No, well, stories don't die. Wherever there is any mystery or any questions remaining, of course, a story doesn't die. Look at Tiger Woods. Did that story die? No, but if he had come out and said, yes, I have had 40,000 lovers...
We will have to take a break.
Know, then it would go away. People go, oh, dirty dog, and move
just making clear, we're not comparing Ali Moore and Tiger Woods. We will pause for thought now and return to conclude the discussion after the break.